and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
And
each other.
Monday, September 15th,
God help us.
Lord bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill
tuned
Thorpe.
into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Coming up after news and comment, one of my absolute favorite people. He's brilliant. John Stonestreet, president of the Colson Center for Christian Worldview, host of the Daily Christian Breakpoint as well. You can hear on our sister station.
Yes. But I'm sorry, sister station KRKS.
KRKS, yep.
Yeah. I'm going to derail the conversation here for a second because that's kind of what I do. Gluten is delicious.
You're eating one of the gluten-free Oreos.
Yeah. we have
gluten-free
Oreos in the kitchen. And I'm like, I never had that before. I'm deciding, I'm sorry if everybody has a gluten allergy, but gluten must be delicious. Whatever the hell it is, it's got to be delicious because these things are flat.
That becomes the missing component.
These are not Oreos. These are not, okay. I'm sorry, return to the wonderful introduction. I'm just telling you.
Sorry, gluten-free Oreos.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is what
for
happens
the
in
negative
my head.
ad.
Yeah. This is what happens in my silly brain, and I'm sorry about that. I apologize to everybody.
We've got a lot to cover, and you're going to really enjoy this conversation. Stonestreet is one of the most brilliant Americans out there. He's a wonderful thinker. He's going to be speaking up at the upcoming Centennial Institute Impact Summit. But now it's time for news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. We're expecting a high of 83 today on this Monday morning, around 60 degrees right now. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story.
Did they know? Were they sure of this? Or did they hear this and just write it off? That's what we're going to have to find out. And
FBI Director Dan Bongino on Fox News this morning on the assassin.
That's what we're investigating now. Bill, this investigation is just begun. This isn't even the beginning of the beginning. You know, yes, we have a subject in custody. You know, everybody's innocent until proven guilty in our constitutional republic. However, this is not done by any stretch. Our men and women out there in the Bureau have worked tirelessly all weekend. I just got back to D.C. Last night. And, Cash and I were out there on the scene. We walked the scene. We went through every single component of it. We saw the evidence up close and personal. And we went out there to be able to make command decisions with our team on the ground. And I think the process, although not perfect, of course, I think the process went pretty well considering we got him in 33 hours.
Okay, yeah. And FBI Director Kash Patel, a lot of people questioning him this morning, says the suspect sent someone a text saying that he had the opportunity, the assassin did, to take out Kirk and was going to do it because he hated what Kirk stood for. Patel will face Congress tomorrow on the handling of the case.
We were able to obtain in record time the text message chain between the suspect and his live-in partner, as well as other critical cellular information from our CAS team that analyzes cell phone data towers in the area to pinpoint the locations of the suspect and other individuals he was speaking with. This is critical information that the FBI processed and got to prosecutors so they can lawfully use it in a court of law.
And this New Jersey nurse, she stood up to a doctor who cheered on the assassination of Kirk. They suspended her.
So I walked into the nurse's station and I just had learned about Charlie Kirk. I saw this guy. I didn't know who he was at the time, and he was standing there celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, saying how he deserved it, he hated Charlie Kirk, and he had it coming to him. And
so you love Charlie Kirk. You didn't just were aware of him.
I loved,
yeah,
I'm a big fan of Charlie Kirk. My first retweet in 2018 it was like my first blue checkmark retweet was Charlie Kirk. I was a couple years out of college, and Loved him ever since.
You're aghast at this, and what'd you say?
So I looked down at his badge because I didn't know, what job, if he was a doctor or a nurse, a
Never saw him
tech,
before.
never saw him before. I looked down, I see his badge, and it says doctor. And I said, "You're a doctor?" I said, how are you saying this as a doctor, that someone deserved to die? I mean, to me, I was just mind blown.
Unbelievable. Vice President J.D. Vance will host the Charlie Kirk Show immediately following Jeff and Bill here on KNUS this morning at 10:05. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the focus is now on what happens next following Israel's strike on Hamas inside Qatar last week. He met with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu today in Jerusalem. Wall Street opening higher as investors brace for the Federal Reserve meeting this week. Stocks edged higher after this news. The DJT on Truth this morning said the big trade meeting in Europe between the U.S. and China has gone very well. A deal was reached on a certain company the young people in our country very much wanted to save, and DJT says that young people will be very happy because it's about TikTok. The president says he'll be talking to President Xi on Friday. A man armed with a machete and a knife was shot and killed by a deputy outside a Walmart in Centennial Sunday morning. Deputies responded to a shoplifting call. When the suspect advanced toward them, he would not stop with both weapons. They tried a taser. That did not work, and they turned to the conventional method. Week 2 of the NFL and the Broncos in Indianapolis on Sunday, and the Colts with an opportunity to win it with a 60-yard field goal from a kicker who had not missed in the NFL before this.
Rhodes will snap. Sanchez will hold. And the kick is no good. Denver's going to win. Denver's going to win.
But then there's a flag.
Is there a penalty down in the middle of the field?
Flag.
Oh, my goodness. It is against Denver.
Personal foul. Leverage. Defense number 96.
That's a huge. Oh, my goodness.
Trying to climb on top of his teammate to block the field goal. You can't do that.
You see the leverage jumping over the top. That's where the penalty was called, and that's not a little penalty. That's this for the win. Spencer Schrager. It's good, and the Colts have won.
29-28, Colts beat the Broncos.
Got to interrupt here just for a sec, because you know the stuff about the sportsy thing more than I do as far as NFL rules. Since we can't do the leverage thing and jump over the center to block the kick, is there anything in the rules that says we can't put one of our players on somebody else's shoulders and then have them stand behind the line? Is there a rule there?
You can't do that.
Damn.
You can't do that.
So we do a little kid thing where you hide in the trench coat. You can't do that?
Yes.
Damn. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the fact that they thought about that. Okay.
I think it's a great idea.
I'd love
there
that
was
idea.
a guy named Bobby Taylor. He played for Notre Dame. He's from East Texas, and then he played for the Eagles, and he blocked more field goals than anyone. His dad was an Olympian. And he talked about that all the time. He said, you know what? If I could just get on someone's shoulders after I jump, and it would make it even easier. I think I could block every field goal.
I think that's what you should do. Is just the linemen should put the linemen should put the linebackers on their shoulders.
Yes.
And then when the things snap, they just stand up.
Yes.
Yes. That's
I agree.
good.
Or offensive linemen. 5, 6 of them with the lightest receivers on their shoulders or corners and just waving their arms like this.
We're getting into like Cirque du Soleil.
Here's what's even better.
Stuff.
Okay, as long as we're doing this, as long as we're doing Cirque du Soleil this thing, this is what we do. Okay, this is a new thing for the Broncos. Is you know how in cheerleading they do that basket toss?
Yes.
And throw them? That's what we do.
Absolutely.
We get a couple of you get one of the light guys. We'll just
now.
whoever the lightest person is on the team, and maybe it is the field goal kicker from
him
our
up there to
team,
block
and you
the
throw him
field
up in the air.
goal.
He has to block it. That's what we do. Come on.
What do you do? I play for the Broncos. Really? What do you do? Oh, they chuck me up really high to have a A ball.
Yes. Yeah. Like,
I'm all
you're
for
like
field goals
5'6"
then.
and you weigh 130 pounds. How do you play for the Broncos? I'm the dude they throw in the air to block the kicks. Oh, okay, good.
I love it.
There we go.
Then I say keep the field goals.
Absolutely,
Just
yes. That's much
keep
more
them in
fun.
place.
Yes, that's what we do.
I love it. Great idea. Here's Sean Payton.
It'll be painful to watch that film, and yep, we'll get the corrections made. So, starts with me.
God, I love that idea. I think that would be so cool. Eagles beat the Chiefs. That's good news for the Broncos. 15 more games. No problem. Plenty of time. Chargers at the Raiders tonight. And let's see. The Lions, they beat the Bears. And John is all excited about that this morning. And let's see. College football, CU, everybody loses up and down the Front Range. And CU's got to turn it around. They looked horrible in Houston. 53 in Boulder, 55 in Centennial. You know what? Those are way off. Those temperatures are way off. It's like 65 in Denver right now. And it is 63 in, let's see, Littleton, and 64 in Aurora. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It'll be a little warmer to start the week, with temperatures in Denver reaching a low to mid-80s today before cooling off and getting back into showers and thunderstorms again Tuesday and Wednesday. Low to mid-80s today, a couple of isolated afternoon and evening thunderstorms, low to mid-50s tonight. Cooling to the 70s Tuesday and Wednesday with a good chance both days for showers and thunderstorms. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Very honored to have him because he's a very busy guy. Speaks all over the country. He is the leader, president of the Colson Center for Christian Worldview, hosts the Daily Christian Breakpoint you can hear on our sister station, KRKS. He joins us now. John Stonestreet. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Bob. Great to be on with you guys.
Gosh, I want to ask you, I know we've got an event coming up with the Centennial Institute. We'll talk about that in a second. But today's debate, and in fact, debate we've watched on Fox News all over today, is kind of the ability of us to move forward as a common nation. People, as Fox News was pointing out, civil war being used at a higher rate on X than at any point before. Last night, Tom Tancredo gave a speech where he goes, look, we don't have a lot in common with the left anymore. We believe that our rights come from God. They don't. We believe in limited government. They don't. We believe in strong family structures. They don't. So how do you build a common nation with people that don't share the same values? I know we didn't talk about having you talk about this, but you're so good at thinking through this. I just want to get your take on that. How do we move forward as a nation together in the midst of this violence that's taking place?
Well, listen, I hope we can, but it's not clear to me that we can. And it's not because there's not millions of us who don't want to. We do. I mean, because the alternative is terrible. You know, I think about Mel Gibson's character in The Patriot, you know, talking about war. It's like you do everything possible to avoid that. But there's two problems. I mean, one is that, you know, before they called Charlie Kirk a fascist and Donald Trump a fascist, they called George W. Bush and Mitt Romney a fascist.
Right.
In other words, like there is a way of thinking where everyone to the right of anyone is not only wrong, not only holds a different view, but holds an unacceptable view. And then, you know, I've said for a long time, I think we've been overtaken in American culture. I think this is especially true of our institutions, by what's called the critical theory mood, which is kind of, you know, the popular version of the academic theory, which says that people should be grouped into groupings and then morally judged, not as individuals, but as entire groupings. And so what's happened is that we tend to see people according to their beliefs and their humanity identified with their beliefs. And we've got to somehow understand that human dignity is rooted in the fact that every single person is made in the image and likeness of God. and that they're not to be dehumanized because of a set of beliefs. Now, I'm not saying that all beliefs are equal. I'm not saying that some beliefs aren't worse than others. That's clearly the case. But we have to be able to separate human dignity from beliefs. And I don't see that that's clear that we're able to do that. But I tell you what gives me hope, Jeff, and the thing that should give us all hope is that Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. And we're seeing an incredible upsurge of people, especially young people, including young men who are realizing that there's not meaning to be found anywhere else. And they're turning back to some of these, to church. They're turning back to Scripture. They're following the advice that Charlie gave so many millions of people. And I do think that's hopeful.
That's John Stonestreet. He's the president of the Colson Center and hosts the Breakpoint radio show. And what John works on is worldview, helping educate worldview. So I want to ask you about these competing worldviews, because you've written at your website, breakpoint.org. Go there for some great articles. You talk about Charlie Kirk. You talk about how young people have been awakened to faith as a result of him. And you also have an article on there about Mandami and what's happening in New York and the appeal that he has, particularly to young people. So help game out this split that's taken. Describe what's happening, the split that's taken among young people. Some people going to church for the first time, some people putting on a suit for the first time, going, I want to live like Charlie Kirk. I've been inspired by him. Coldplay mentioning Charlie Kirk. Football stadiums mentioning Charlie Kirk. Everybody's talking about that. And at the same time, the leading figure in the Democrat Party in New York City is an avowed socialist, communist, Muslim who's called for a global intifada. So what is happening here from your perspective?
Well, I mean, look, you're exactly right, and there's a divide, and I don't know. I mean, you see different polls and different surveys saying, which group is going in which direction. It seems like more young men are going in the direction of Charlie Kirk, and more young women are going in the other direction. I don't know if that holds out across the board in every state or in every demographic, or what it looks like in a place like New York City. But there is something that results when an entire generation has been told over and over and over and over again that the Western world and everything that built it, particularly any sort of Christian vision of dignity and freedom and so on, is the worst thing that ever happened. It's the source of all slavery. It's the source of all oppression, and so on. And so then the problem that needs to be solved in the world, according to Mamdani and folks like him, is this kind of systemic oppression, and that has to be done from the top down. We just heard, right, just a couple weeks ago, Senator Kaine say that, if you believe that rights come from God and not from government, you're like a Muslim. And I wanted to scream out and say, my goodness, if you believe that rights come from government and not from God, that's what every fascist and totalitarian and communist government has proclaimed since the beginning of time, especially all the failed communist experiments of the 20th century. But this is a generation of young people who's never learned about that. This is a generation of young people who have been taught a vision of American history in which it's all bad. I think it's fascinating that there are so many thought leaders, particularly those out of Europe, some who yesterday was telling us that God is a delusion and that religion poisons everything, turning around and going, oh, wait, we need to reattach ourselves to these Christian views about life in the world because they're the source of things like human dignity and human rights and so on. And, listen, that was an ideal that we're building out of the West, but we've cut ourselves off from the root. Os Guinness calls this a cut flower civilizational moment. And I think he's exactly right. And so when you see that, then solutions that have been tried and failed, like communism, like socialism, make sense to a lot of people. You asked earlier, is there any hope? Is there any way to see us going forward? It's going to be really hard to do that without a shared cultural memory. And we don't have that. You and I grew up in the Cold War. That's my earliest political memory. My earliest political memory is probably the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. And then, we watched the wall come down. We watched Reagan, call for that. He called communism an evil empire. That's language we don't use anymore. And that's language that hasn't been taught, and we've changed who the good guys are and the bad guys are. So there's going to need to be a shared civic education, or we're going to see this kind of divide. By the way, this is one of the noble things about what Charlie Kirk absolutely did. He went into those places where the other side of the story was not being told, and he told it. He told it, and he had the conversation. You know, Jeff, you and I have been in so many conversations where, like, higher ed is lost. There's nothing we can do about it because the tenured professorships are all taken. The administrators are all taken. And unless we win those back, we're not going to be able to take the universities back. Kirk just went right to the students. It's really an amazing strategy that a whole lot of people thought would never work. And man, did it make a dent? And more than a dent, it started a movement. And I think that's really something noble that we can thank God for.
Yeah, and to that point, John Stonestreet's joining us. I said yesterday at Brave Church during the memorial, I said Charlie Kirk was never going to put a glass partition between him and the people he wanted to reach. For him, the connection to college students, the direct connection, was the most important thing. So while I so wish the security would have improved and there would have been a different outcome there, the Charlie Kirk I know was never going to allow that. I mean, that's just one of the things. He just loved people so much. John Stonestreet, John serves as the president of the Colson Center for Christian Worldview. He's also the host of the Daily Christian Breakpoint, which you can hear on 710 KNUS, our sister station. He's an incredibly talented Christian thinker. His organization is about worldview development. So if you're sitting here going, look, I never heard this stuff in school. What are we talking about? Our rights come from God? Well, it's publicly educated. All right, there's still time. There's still hope. And you go to breakpoint.org to join the movement there to better understand and to be better informed. So, John, want to talk about Centennial Institute's Impact Summit coming up. People have a chance to hear you speak in person, which is one of the best things they can do because you're very talented. Centennial Impact Summit, September 26th through the 27th. And you guys are going to be tackling technology, theology, and anthropology, reclaiming embodiment in a brave new world. Tell us what this is about.
Yeah, that's quite a robust title, isn't it? I mean, listen, it would be one thing to live in a technological age if we were all really clear on what it means to be human. I remember Peter Kreff, the Catholic ethicist, writing this years and years ago. He said, just when our toys went from bows and arrows to thermonuclear bombs, we became moral infants. In other words, the stakes are higher, but we've become less able to address the ethical concerns. Now, we've seen this on an individual level. Look, there's a lot coming out about this shooter that seems to suggest that there was a radicalization as a result of a lot of technology. And people, parents talk about this all the time. I can't break my kid away from the computer screen. I can't break my kid away from the phone. How do we keep the bad guys out of their hearts and minds through that? And then we're talking, of course, on a cosmic level, or at least a cultural level, when it comes to artificial intelligence. Is it going to replace humans? Are we ever going to actually be able to have an artificial intelligence that equals or exceeds human intelligence? Well, all of that depends on the fact that we can answer the question, what's a human? What's a human being? The sociologist Peter Berger wrote 20 years ago that in modern culture, we have a permanent identity crisis. I mean, think of all the ways we fiddle around and replace and substitute our identities. Certainly, we do that in the area of sexuality, but we also do that in the area of technology. One of my friends likes to say, look, if you thought the transgender conversation was really complicated, hard, and bad for us, wait till you get to the transhumanist conversation, which is coming tomorrow. And I think he's exactly right. And so really what the Centennial Institute, at least what my part will be about, is really about defining what it means to be a human, getting clear on that. By the way, Chuck Colson used to say that the Christian idea of what it means to be human is the greatest contribution that Christianity ever gave the wider world, except, of course, for the message of salvation in Christ. In other words, if it's true, as our founders wrote, that all men are created equal, which was a profound and revolutionary ideal, one that we weren't even living up to at the time, but put us on a trajectory, that's got to be based on something. And it can't be based on external characteristics. It can't be based on chosen identities because there's no consistency there. It's got to be based on something intrinsic about who we are. And that ideal comes specifically out of the Judeo-Christian understanding that God created us in his image. You don't find that anywhere else. And it's a profoundly good idea. It has been a profoundly powerful and good idea in human history, maybe one of the most consequential ideas in all of human history. So we got to get anthropology, what it means to be human, clear before we're really going to be able to do ethics and morality, which we're going to have to do because our technology is allowing us to do some crazy, amazing stuff. But we tend to say, if we can, then we should. And we ought not do everything that comes into our minds. I don't know if you knew that, Jeff. I teach my kid that all the time.
Yes.
Don't do everything that comes into your mind.
Don't tweet everything that comes into your mind either. That's something I'm working on, actually. So.
Oh, man. Well, listen, no kidding. It's a great conversation. And, Jeff, I meant to say this up front, but I just want to say this. Your tribute to Charlie on your website, I thought was absolutely spectacular. I know it was personal. I know it hurt you personally, as it did many of us, but you knew him at a level. And I just, if people haven't read that, they need to go read it. It was really well done.
I appreciate that. What I worked through with Charlie was this notion that he was, and this is because I'm a big fan of David McCullough, the historian, and I read everything that David does, is that Charlie is the quintessential American. In fact, I mean, he's right there with the founders. And so while I was lambasted for being far right yesterday by a certain media personality here in Colorado, what Charlie was not a far right character. He was a quintessential American character. He was young, idealistic. He was rooted in his Christian faith. And that has produced some of the greatest aspects of the American story. And that should be embraced, not dismissed as the radical right. Well, John Stonestreet's the president of the Colson Center for Christian Worldview. He's going to be speaking coming up at the Centennial Institute Impact Summit. They're tackling theology, technology, and anthropology, what it means to be a Christian. I know it sounds complicated, but part of John Stonestreet's brilliance is his ability to take complicated aspects and help us understand them. He's going to join some great speakers from the Ethics and Public Policy Center, as well as Isabel Brown, the host of the Isabel Brown Show. All of this, if you go to centennial.ccu.edu, centennial.ccu.edu. John, we've got just a few more minutes here. I want to ask you about the Colson Fellows program because it is absolutely one of the most powerful programs out there to help people learn the way you think about the world, to learn the way our founders thought about the world. And they didn't get this in their civics class, so they hear the way you're talking and they go, I want to go deeper with somebody like John Stonestreet and the way he thinks. Tell us about the Colson Fellows program. Tell us about Breakpoint.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Listen, the Colson Center, of course, is named after Chuck Colson. And Chuck was one of the great Americans of the last generation. He was a great American because he was a great Christian. He understood that, that Christianity is built on truth with a capital T, and you've got to get down to that level. I mean, listen, what made Charlie Kirk so brilliant was not just that he was a really passionate American. It was that he was a really thoughtful one who understood the truths, capital T, again, about life in the world that make sense and that give us the best way forward. And Chuck Colson was a great leader of the last generation. He was passionate about the church being the church. And so he founded a program. After he died, we named it after him, the Colson Fellows Program. It's a 9-month study for Christians who just want to go deeper. They want to know why they believe what they believe. They want to understand the cultural issues, not just to understand them, but at a point where they can actually respond to them, both in leading their children and grandchildren, leading their churches and communities forward. And then, of course, that's where the program ends, is in a leadership plan. I mean, Chuck was a great doer of the word. We used to joke that God loves us and Chuck has a wonderful plan for our lives. And that's really how we think about the Fellows program, is you learn what's true, you learn how to understand the cultural moment through the lens of what's true, and then you make a plan on how God wants to pull you out. And really where it ends is in calling. A lot of times we think about calling as being called to a job or called to a ministry or called to an act of charity. all that's true, we sometimes forget that God has called us to this cultural moment. This is in Acts 17 where Paul says that God determines the exact times that we live in the boundaries of our dwelling place. So we're not here by accident. I think a lot of people woke up to that in the last week. You know, what does it mean to engage this moment in the way that God's calling me to do? And the Fellows program is kind of like the equipping. It's the equipping program for Christians who want to make a difference in the world. And you can find out more at colsonfellows.org, colsonfellows.org. And thanks for asking about Breakpoint. I mean, listen, sometimes I think we feel like we're playing cultural whack-a-mole, like another issue pops up and we got to smack it on the head. If you have that solid ground of a Christian worldview, it gives you a framework so that you can understand the things that matter and understand them well. So Breakpoint's a daily podcast. You can go to breakpoint.org. You can hear it there on the Salem station in Denver. You can also just look for the Breakpoint podcast wherever you listen to it.
And you guys broadcast nationwide. I mean, it is such a valuable teaching point. Grateful to have you. You can see John Stone Street in person coming up September 26th through the 27th at the Centennial Impact Summit. Tickets are available at centennial.ccu.edu, centennial.ccu.edu. John, always great to have you on the program. Thank you for your time, sir.
Hey, thanks. It's always great to be on. God bless you guys.
Take care. That's John Stone Street. All right, let's talk advanced hair restoration, guys. You're losing your hair. You need a simple solution that works. You want the best. Modern technology, top-rated physicians, something that's guaranteed to work. Guys, you need Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. They've completely redefined hair restoration from the experience itself to their unmatched results. You got a receding hairline, bald spot, or thinning hair. Address them all with Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment in a calm, relaxed environment with the most experienced professionals. Advanced Hair has performed tens of thousands of these breakthrough treatments, and get this, your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day. No one in Denver can offer anything like the Advanced FUE found at Advanced Hair, and I highly recommend their team. It starts with your free consultation. Give them a call at 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Refine your hairline with the team that's redefined hair restoration. 720-459-HAIR. 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. All right, we got to get to a break, but I got to give a tip of the hat to Kathy. Yeah. Kathy, you know who you are. You're listening. Thank you for the phone call. We love you.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. We love
All
you.
right, we've got more to cover. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Full show, great conversation with John Stonestreet over at Colson Center, Breakpoint. He's going to be leading a talk at the Centennial Impact Summit coming up September 26th through the 27th. And they're going to be discussing theology, technology, and anthropology. You can learn more at centennial.ccu.edu, centennial.ccu.edu. Text messages coming in based on that conversation. I want to respond to one here. Religion and politics need to be separate. Otherwise, it would be acceptable for Mandamni to install Quran-type stuff into law. I don't think we want that. Muslim, Christianity, it's all the same thing. And it has no influence, no question, but should, it has influence, no question, but should never find its way into politics. I want to respond to that because I disagree. One of the big failures that came out of like the 60s, 70s, 80s was this initial progressivism that separated from the Christian traditions of America, but what it dissolved into was Marxism, okay? And you see that as it's very popular among young people right now. And there's a lot of ethical problems with that. One being when you put people, as Marx does in the Communist Manifesto, first page, by the way, first just chapter, the Communist Manifesto, all of history is oppressor versus oppressed. When you put people into categories of oppressor versus oppressed, which the Bible doesn't, what we've seen happen is it greenlights the violence against the oppressor. This is why you have a very weird, illogical, completely illogical joining of Islamists and Marxists, okay? Because they hold fundamentally different worldviews, okay? They, on one hand, one believes in sexual freedom and the ability to express yourself and have multiple partners and change your genders and all this stuff. The other one will throw you off a building for believing that, okay? The other one believes in freedom of thought and expression, that type of thing. I want to be able to think what I want to think. The other one tells you via the Quran exactly the way you need to think. So the idea that these would somehow come together against Jews and conservatives, you have to understand, you have to ask yourself at least the question, why? Why is this taking place? Okay? And it's in part because of its hatred towards Western civilization, but Marxists have put Jews in the category of oppressor. Islamists hate the Jews. That's the marriage you got. That's why you have anti-Semitic protests taking place on college campuses. So what happened in America with the progressive movement and that the Democrats have embraced away from Christian traditions was to try to build a society that could exist on those freedoms without, as John Stonestreet said, the foundation and the roots to be able to sustain it. It's become inherently more oppressive, more violent, more drug addicted, more depressed. And the return, the freedom, the sustainability is the foundation of Judeo-Christian values that built Western civilization. That's the only way we get back from it. So I disagree with 9588. Well, you're welcome to join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Capitalist Law text line, 720-819-5115. And look, saying that we are rooted in Christian values is not calling for a theocracy or even a theonomy. Okay, those are different. No one's calling for that. A theocracy is your church leaders pick the political figures. So you appeal to them, the Catholic Church or the Protestant leaders get to pick who the political leaders are. No one's asking to do that. A theonomy is where you take the Bible and you go, we're only going to have rules and laws based upon whatever the Bible says. So that becomes it. That's only it. We only follow that. No one's calling for that either. But what you had unique in America was a Judeo-Christian informed Western civilization that combined with Greek and Roman thought that produced America. And what the leftists tried to do was remove out that Judeo-Christian influence, and it just doesn't work. Prove me wrong. Join the conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go to the phone lines. Ralph in Colorado Springs. Good morning, Ralph. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, my question to your caller, and I'll ask you the question directly, Jeff, is which Christianity? You just said Christian.
And where did the Enlightenment come from?
The problem that I have is everybody is throwing these words around.
Like
Communist,
the Enlightenment?
Fascist, Christian.
And where did the Enlightenment come from?
The problem that I have is everybody is throwing these words around.
Like the Enlightenment?
Fascist, Christian. And they don't tell the rest of us what the heck they mean.
Okay.
Here's the problem. And all I want to do is just let's lower the rhetoric. When somebody does something, and I hate Charlie Kirk getting killed. But to say, oh, it's a communist is BS. Excuse my French.
I don't think we said it was a communist. I think we said he was influenced by leftists. You think that's right?
No, I think you've used the word communist. Check.
All right.
All I think we need to do, and I agree with Tancredo, is we are splitting ourselves apart by throwing around fighting words against anyone we don't agree with.
You think the words are splitting us apart, not necessarily the philosophies?
Because of, look, I'm Czech, or my grandfather and so forth were Czech. Fundamentally, Christianity was, and I don't know if you know the religious history, but you ever hear of a guy named John Huss, H-U-S?
Yes, Hussites.
Okay. Well, fundamentally, Christianity waged I think it's by numbers, the most crusades in history against the Czechs, against the Hussites. So let's not, to me, when you say, I'm a Christian and you're not, what you're saying is... I
didn't say you were not a Christian.
Let's
Christianity created the freest nation in the history.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
No,
and you're living in it, and you're enjoying it. The debate will continue tomorrow. J.D. Vance is up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
The vice president is following us. Can't miss this. This is 710 KNUS.